This is the Pipeline Podcast. Today is June 21st. It's Saturday, and we have a couple breaking news updates. We're always on Twitch when we record these videos. The link is in the YouTube description on our page. We have a couple stories today. So we have two updates, like major updates on stories that we've been following. The first one is this Salt Lake City would-be shooter got released today, so we're gonna go over that. That's a big update. We were talking about this the other day. So allegedly he is like super left-leaning and like brought his gun just to like open carry at the protest to protect the protesters, and he got mistaken for a shooter, and so he got released today. We're gonna go over that. We also have, for the third time, the Trump versus Newsom lawsuit over the National Guard being in LA. It got ruled against. Not thrown out, but it got denied. It got ruled against Newsom. It got ruled for Trump for the third time, that Trump can keep the National Guard in LA for now. So we're going to go over that. Okay, so the first story we're going to cover is the Salt Lake City shooter that got released. So this is another video of what happened. It is honestly a better video than the video that we've seen before on this channel. It's a little bit more zoomed in. It shows just what this guy Arturo, the shooter, was up to a little bit more. So let's take a look.
A viewer who saw our story last night reached out today with this clip. It shows another angle of the shooting. You'll see the suspect, Arturo Gamboa, run through the screen. Then you see the described peacekeepers come into the frame. One of them shoots. This video was provided by a viewer who delivered it to the Fox 13 newsroom. There's Arturo Gamboa, dressed in black.
There he is. That's our boy.
Street. Look behind the fence. You can see Gamboa's figure behind the planks. He bends down. Police have said Gamboa removed an AR-15 style rifle from his backpack. He's behind the fence for about a minute and a half. Meanwhile, one of the yellow-clad volunteer peacekeepers appears to have spotted Gamboa. You see the volunteer with some communication device to his ear, and then he waves to someone else. A second volunteer in yellow arrives. Gamboa starts walking towards State Street. The volunteers have guns drawn. One fires. Police say it was 3 shots. Here's the new video synced with footage we showed you Tuesday night.
So yeah, on the right is the video that we have seen.
Here's that video again, even slower. You can see where Gamboa was in relation to the volunteers. But another round struck and killed Afa Alu, a bystander. Police, citing witnesses, have said Gamboa had his rifle in a firing position and was running toward the crowd. But neither Tuesday's video nor the new footage shows that. Tuesday's video showed Gamboa's rifle barrel pointed down. And he doesn't begin running until the shooting starts. Gamboa never fired a shot, but he remains in the Salt Lake County Jail on suspicion of murder. Police alleging his...
All right, so that's the video. It was just another source of us seeing him with this gun down, which is what we thought we saw the first video. Also, I've heard things like there's no bullets in his gun. And anyway, he got released today. So we wanted to go over that because we have been talking about this. And this is the same guy with the like Antifa ties. So it's like Antifa protester, open carries in Salt Lake City, gets shot by private security, but he got released today. He originally was arrested on suspicion of murder, but he never got charged. There were these peacekeepers, which aren't like police. And I was kind of talking about how if police were there, they might have judged the situation correctly, and maybe that innocent guy didn't get shot.
That's what I'm looking for right now, is to understand what these peacekeepers are, what these volunteer peacekeepers that are allowed to pull firearms are.
Right, so yeah, it's a super interesting scenario because it takes place in Utah, which is like a pretty conservative state, especially with gun laws, but it's like a liberal protest. And so like people don't want like the people with guns or even like cops at these liberal protests.
Looks like the peacekeeper, the volunteer peacekeeper that shot him or shot at him is an old military vet.
Yeah, he's ex-military.
these peacekeepers are volunteers selected by the organization because of their military or first responder de-escalation experience. However, it doesn't look like there was much de-escalating there. I don't
No,
know if he even said drop the gun, hands up, anything like that. It looks like he just took out his gun and started firing.
like I kind of think if that was like the real police, it might have gone a little differently. He's not a real police officer, and like maybe that's the whole reason this situation happened in the first place. And I kind of think that he'll end up getting charged with like manslaughter or something, the peacekeeper, but who knows?
I mean, a man died, so especially even if he was a volunteer peacekeeper and is ex-military, just because you're military doesn't mean you interact with civilians, right? Unless you're the National Guard.
Right, it
I'm not
doesn't
sure.
mean he's trained in de-escalation.
Or de-escalation with civilian population.
Right, or
That's
like
the whole
riot
point.
control.
Sure, and so it just seems like there's going to be at least a lawsuit for the rally's organizer,
Yeah,
or
someone.
or at least a personal like civil suit, if not an actual criminal case. I wouldn't be surprised to see if the organization might try and back him up, and maybe even a potential police department might come help. But well, I guess we'll see more of that in the future and as it comes.
Yeah, we'll have to check it out. And I kind of want to compare this guy here, Arturo, the guy getting arrested, to like a darker skinned Kyle Rittenhouse that didn't actually kill anybody. And like this is kind of like what could happen to like people who just don't understand the consequences that really could happen when you like bring a gun to a protest like this, and like how high tensions are.
Yeah, someone died.
Someone
More
did
people
die.
could have died.
Someone died. Like maybe running masked up with a gun, even if it's not loaded, is a really bad idea.
And I'm not military myself, and it's surprising that I have to say this to someone who's ex-military, but you should always know what's beyond what you're firing at. It's your responsibility what the bullet is not only going to, but what is behind the bullet.
Right. Yeah. Like if there's a crowd of protesters behind a guy you need to shoot, that just means you really can't shoot. I mean, yeah, I feel like that is obvious.
Or
Unless that guy
potentially
is shooting
maybe
people.
confront. Yes.
Yeah.
Now, if he's
Try
shooting
and get
someone,
between them.
obviously that's different, right? But this man is not shooting. His gun was not raised.
Yeah, we have two
He
sources that his gun was down.
There's no, I mean, not even any bullets in the gun, which he doesn't know, but he should have at least for being picked for his de-escalation practices or training or experience. Obviously, there wasn't much de-escalation happening there. If he was a police officer, he might have known a little bit more about the open carry laws as well.
So yeah, we just wanted to go over that.
And any charges or anything else that happens, we will be
Definitely
back.
do an update. The CNN and this NBC source are like the only mainstream sources like really talking about it now as of just today. I'm sure we'll get more, but there is more to the story, as we've seen his Facebook profile where he did post like super liberal, super Antifa stuff. So I think the mainstream media is not really going to talk about that, but there is still even more to the story. I hope it develops even further, and we'll have to check it out. We're not bragging here, but we called it on the podcast 4 days ago that this guy was innocent, and it was just obvious from watching the video. So Salt Lake Police Department for originally arresting him, it was kind of a big fuck up there. But anyway, we'll continue to our next source, which is just as spicy. I kind of pulled up like a little timeline here. This last source here was from yesterday. It's basically just a source saying that a 3-judge panel ruled for Trump to keep the National Guard in LA. And that is 1, 2, 3, the third time that the courts have ruled in favor of Trump here. It really just goes to show that like Newsom is just like trying to create a lawsuit out of this so it like makes his cause like look good, not being able to admit for a while that like the riots were violent, and to kind of try to like not take accountability for any of that and just blame everything on Trump and say that he escalated the situation in LA, when in reality ICE had been detaining people for like the last 100 days. It wasn't anything new. They just made a big deal about it once ICE really showed up in force in LA, and they escalated things. And we kind of see the courts here siding with Trump for a third time again.
So it's very, in my opinion, cut and dry. So while states' rights are, in my opinion, very huge, and the states definitely should have rights over their people, the federal government shouldn't have total control over states. However, I digress. The federal government is there to conduct federal government activities. The border is federal jurisdiction. So if those ICE agents are being interfered with by local civilian populations and the police aren't going to stop them, there is every right for the federal government to send in the National Guard to ensure that ICE can do its job because they are trying to take care of the border, or under the guise of the border. This is very obviously Gavin Newsom just trying to get political points for social scores.
Yep.
This doesn't help politically. This doesn't help business owners. This doesn't help the people. All this does is make him look good.
Yeah, absolutely. This is just
it's anti-Trump.
Yeah, it is. It's just another example of how ICE has been saying this since the beginning. Like, if you don't cooperate with us, things are just going to be worse for like your city or your state, like the whole area. And this is just another example of ICE going in trying to do their job and seeing just like literally violent mobs come out against them. We have like pro illegal immigration rioters like on the streets. And it's like, it's only going to make things worse. It's only going to make the situation worse. These ICE raids aren't going to stop. Maybe you should try to like de-escalate the situation and not have your city go up in flames for a week.
And I just wish that we would focus on better things to protest. This is just not one of the important things to protest. We should be protesting to end the war, Medicare for all, ending legalized bribing, which is lobbying.
Yeah.
Take care of the big pharma, the military industrial complex, all these things we could be protesting and rioting for, and we choose to do stupid social issues.
And so there is still like a continuation to this lawsuit. There is still a way that like judges find that like the way Trump went about it wasn't technically legal because he didn't notify Newsom that he was activating the Guard. Either way, they have deemed that the National Guard can stay because like there was a real threat in LA. They were saying that Trump illegally activated the troops. That got ruled against today, like it was fine. Gavin Newsom issued a statement that expressed disappointment that the court is allowing Trump to retain control of the Guard. Yeah, I mean, he's just doing his job there. He's just like so anti-Trump, and like he kind of started this whole lawsuit mess, so he's just like digging a hole here again. And then the Guard remains in LA. So I guess we'll have to see if there's any updates here. But we've been following this lawsuit. It is kind of hard to follow, but we have it getting denied on the 10th, and then 8 days ago, so I believe that was the 13th, getting denied again. And then today, it looks like for a final time, Newsom's lawsuit is denied, but we'll see how that goes. Anyway, that is the end of the episode. It was just 2 big updates on stories that we have been covering, so we just had to stay on top of it because it is hard to find the real story on both of these updates here. So like the story you're going to get about the Salt Lake City shooter on like CNN is just that he's innocent and he got released today, but you're not going to get the whole Antifa narrative because they don't want to talk about that. Just the story you're going to get on Newsom's lawsuit here is probably this: what's next in the legal battle? That's kind of the title. But really what happened in the news, the whole reason this article's written, is because it got denied for a 3rd time today. So it is just hard to like follow these things, but these are very important like news stories and they're very interesting. So we'll be following things like this, and I'm sure we'll have an update on both these stories in the future. Subscribe to the channel for that, and have a great day.